Eighth grade, we are about to get totally tubular with this drawing. Okay, I'm acting a little goofy. We are going to work on some shading this week. It's just a one-time project. There'll be no art next week because of parent-teacher conferences for eighth grade. So this gives you a little practice with some shading. We're going to work on our lights and our darks in a nice gradual blend. And then when we return after parent-teacher conference week, then we have a fall Halloween type picture that we're going to do that's going to involve some shading with some color. So you're going to get some experience with this, hopefully in your sketchbooks or a piece of paper, and we're going to walk you through step by step. All right, here we go. You ready, eighth grade? So I'm going to turn to page in our sketchbook, and we are going to turn that so it's landscape style. That gives us a little bit of area. We're going to actually put our name in here. So we are going to stick, we don't want to be like a block style letter. We want to have more of a rounded bubble type letter, but we also got to get it to fit on the page. So I recommend going light with your letters. You can always go back over them, but it'll be easier to erase. There's not a set straight line that you got to have for how you're going to put them on here. And you can design that font however you would like, as large or as small. I wouldn't get too terribly tiny. I'm going to have a little bit of a bend to mine. You can choose your first or your last name. All right, we'll keep it simple. Nothing too tremendously detailed in the letters. Something like so. All right, and then if you got to fix anything, touch those up. And then we are going to make some lines. So we're going to make what's going to end up being our tube lines on here. And so when I draw a line, we want to interact with each letter with a different tube. All right, so my first tube is going to go through, I'm just going to have it go through the G since that's right in the middle. So as I'm working with this, I can come from the side, I can come from above, however I want to get it over there. I'm going to just start over here with one line, and when I get to a letter, I have to decide whether that tube is going to go under or it's going to go over. And for right now, this first one is going to go under, so I'm going to stop here. So there's my first tube, and it's going to continue, and I think I just missed this, and I can bend that however I want. So I'm going to keep that first tube going just like that. All right, so that's interacting with that letter. I got to try to get some of the other ones involved as well. So I can mix it up on how they interact, but I'm going to show you one that would go over a letter. And we'll start right here. And let's see, I think we'll go from here. And it's going to go over, so I'm going to go over the top of this and then bring it back down. So we can keep them thin, or they can get wider, however you'd like them to go. But since this one's going over, I'm going to erase the two lines from the N so that way it looks like it's going over that letter there. So I'm going to continue that with some of these. They could be short ones, all right? So maybe I go, I'm going to go over this one as well. Could be this quick. And I got to erase these lines because it's going over it. Don't forget to do that, or it might be a little puzzling when we get to the next step. They could go, if you've got an opening like this, I might go under, and then it might go over because it's coming through the opening here. And if you wanted to, it could go interact with another tube. All right, so I can have something like that. This should probably be a little cleaner. I'm going to fix that up. My shading will also help with that, but I'll give it a little help right now. So that tube kind of comes through there. So I've got these three to go, and I think I'm just going to go underneath. Now we'll go over this one. Over. All right. And then I'm going to come out under. You might have a short name with only, 4 or 5 letters in it. So you may have to add a couple tubes in there just so it fills the space, but Try to make sure that you're interacting with each letter the best you can. Yeah, I don't like how close that one is, so I'm going to try to touch this up here. I think sometimes when I stop, I end up with something that's not as fluid as I would like it to be. There we go. And I got these two here. I might just go for both of them. And I'm going to go over and under. I'm going to keep going so it doesn't mess me up here. And then under, 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 across. There we go. So over, under, all of those. All right. And then I got to erase my lines from there. Okay. If I feel like I want to add a little bit more, I've got some open space. Even with my G kind of just sitting right out there, I might have to make another one that kind of goes maybe underneath. You know, I'll keep it thin right here and then have it come out and go over the edge. That's just because I just didn't like the way it looked. So I might go over this one and under this one. You just got to make sure you erase those lines so that you don't have that cross section going in there. There's kind of a space in here, but I think I'm just going to take what I've got right now and I'm going to go from there. All right. So we are going to do the first one, shading with a pencil. And you're just going to pick a tube to work with. And I'm going to start over here on the left side. So anything that goes underneath and meets, so this one goes underneath this O. I'm going to zoom in on that a little bit here. All right. So anything that goes underneath, you're going to give a darker value, a darker shading. And we want to keep them smooth because we want these tubes to look kind of smooth and not rough. So I'm going to keep my pencil lines short and sweet here, short and go in the right direction. So we're going to keep them all going up and down. You could go side to side, it makes it a little tougher, but we want this area right here to be the darkest, and then it's kind of going to go into a medium tone. And then we got to be careful here because it's a tube, so we want the sides of the tube to also have a little bit of a dark value to them. All right. And some people start with the darks, some people start with the lights. I personally think it's a preference of what you want to do. I throw in a little bit of the dark area and then I start shading, and I might go a little extra lighter than normal. If you're used to it and you've practiced shading, not that bad. But if you are new to the game, I would recommend going very lightly because you can always add a little bit more and a little bit more, but it is so hard to take away the extra value that's in there, or the extra shading, all right? So we don't want to just stop. We want to have a nice gradual blend. And I've got my dark and my medium, and I want to leave that center piece fairly light, so that way the dark areas look like they're receding or going back, and the light areas look like they're coming forward. So I will even give it a little bit of a rub. It's easy for me to go in and do the center with my eraser if I need to, but it will be hard for me to erase those edges there. And I just want a nice gradual blend, and I'm just trying to keep this as smooth as possible. And I keep rushing here, so it's looking kind of choppy. So now we're going underneath this, so there's your shadow, and we're coming out here, so this tube goes underneath this area here, so we're going to give this a dark value as well. And we are going to work our way, getting a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter, and I'm keeping those lines short. Now remember that the edges are going to be a little darker, and the centers are going to be a little lighter so that it ends up looking like a nice three-dimensional tube instead of these flat lines that are going through there. So I'm just kind of gradually building up. Like I said, a lot of people start lighter. I already know where my darks are going to go. For you, I would start a little bit lighter You can always go back in. I even like going back in and in those dark areas, pushing a little bit more just so that it gets a little darker. And we get that gradual blend. So this one goes back underneath, so I got to make sure that this is nice and dark. And we don't want it to look choppy. I might have to do one that's kind of choppy. You know, we don't want to have, let's see if I got another one here. There we go. All right. So we don't want to have something like this where we just rush through it and we're filling it in and we're going with a long line and we're changing directions. All right. We don't want it to look like it just kind of stops and then starts another line. You'll see something like this as well. Let's see if I can find a good spot to go here. Maybe right here. All right. Maybe if I go, you know, here's my dark because it's going underneath. I'll see a lot of this. People going side to side, and then there's another tone. They kind of stop, and there's another tone, and they don't hit the edges, and you can tell where the next one is. And it's something like that. There's not that nice gradual blend from dark to light. So you definitely want to make sure you take your time. With pencil, it's easy to rub with your finger. It tends to get a little messy if you don't keep it controlled. And some of these areas aren't very big. All right. But in the next few, you are going to actually be shading with some color, like you saw in that last picture. And that makes it a little harder to blend with your finger, since colored pencil doesn't blend very well with a finger. So you actually have to do a decent job of showing your lights and darks just through shading. And hopefully, you go a little slower than I'm going. I'm trying to rush through this. All right. You can always go back in and make things a little darker. It is tough to take them away. So I'm going down the middle just with a little bit of light shading or light erasing to get my tube. All right. So not too bad. With your color, you can pick whatever you want. I would start with probably a darker color. Those tend to be a little bit easier. It's the same deal. You're looking for what's going underneath. And so those colors will get a little darker as they go underneath. And it's the same thing. You're going to shade a little bit away from it. You got to be real careful. This is where I would probably start with this kind of light. Not pushing as hard, not pushing down all on the pencil. We know it's going to be darker along the edges. And then just getting that gradual blend going into the center. Stuff like that will happen where you end up pushing a little hard once in a while. You just got to try to blend it out. All right, again, hopefully you guys are taking a little bit more time than I'm doing right here. So I've got this, so now I can go back in and make my edges just a little bit darker just to get those to blend in. And I can start getting that three-dimensional quality with those tubes. And then I can continue on this side. Again, this is going to be my darker route because it's going underneath. All right, I'm going to work on this a little bit. You guys work on yours, and then we'll get back to the next step. All right. All right, so I've gotten a few colors in. You saw in the time lapse that I even tried to go in with my eraser, and erasers will take out the light stuff. It'll be tough to take out some of that darker stuff. And it doesn't all go away. There's still that mark that's going to irritate me now the whole time. So you're going to want to do this for all of your tubes, but we also want to do the letters as well. And so I think I'm going to go with this O first. And let me pick a different color here just so it shows up better. I'll go with the L, and I will go with this violet. So this is going over this L. I'm going to take my violet and I'm going to go a little darker near the tube because it's casting a shadow onto that L. I want my letters to be rounded as well. I want them to be kind of tubular, and so it'll be darker around the edges. I'm going to give it kind of a medium tone. Since the letters kind of go in a little bit different direction, they're kind of like the tubes that we've just done, but I want to make sure that the centers are lighter so that they look like they come forward a little bit, and I can always go back in and darken up the edges. And I'm trying to get that gradual blend from dark to light. So I'm going to do that here. This area will be a little bit easier than up there because it's got a bigger space. But I want to show this shadow because of the way the tube goes around it, and then the edges will be a little darker as well. Now in our drawing that's coming up, where we're going to be doing some shading with the colors, we want to keep in mind that we can actually use some other colors to our advantage. And so I'm going to shade this one a little further. I can actually take a little bit of the black and go in here, and I don't want to push very hard with the black. I just want to lightly go over it. It's just going to make that purple just a little darker, and I can actually shade a little bit with it. I'm not asking you to do all of them with the black, but I'd like you to experiment with it and try it in a few areas. So you can see that is darkening up that color very nicely, and then I'm just going to finish it up with some nice purple around the edges. And kind of go from there. So this will make my letter more of a bubble letter. And again, I haven't gone real dark around the edges. And you notice that with the tubes, I kept my lines going the same direction. But right now I'm using kind of a circular, really small circular line to kind of help blend that out. And now I'm going to go a little darker around there, just to get it to stand out just a little bit more. And if I wanted to, I can take that black and very lightly get that to blend in along the very edge, just to give it a little bit darker of a tone so that it looks a little bit more three-dimensional. All right? So not only are we trying to do the tubes, but we are also trying to do the letters as well so that they look rounded. And we're just working on basically that shading from light to dark. All right? Good luck, and keep working on yours.
Just keep up the good work. Make sure you're practicing that gradual change from dark to light. And this sketch will be a good practice for the picture that we are going to work on the next time we are together. So you've got a couple weeks. This Friday and next Friday we won't have class. So if there's things you want to go back and work on, if you've got the free time, by all means, would love to see the pictures. And hopefully that you get some good practice with the shading on this one. And I will then see you on our next project. Okay? So be safe until then, and keep up the good work. Thanks.